Hey guys, this is Jamie. So today I'm gonna talk about a controversial issue, I guess, which is fertility, being trans, and everything about fertility. so, um, I have to preface that I started off when I was a kid. I never really wanted kids which are biological. I always wanted to adopt. Then I met my partner, and I thought, okay, maybe I'll have like one and adopt the rest. And then as time went past, I was like, I am not gonna hold like my transition and my own sanity just to like tick a box nearly. So I obviously had a discussion with my partner, and I'll get there when it comes to transition. And we decided that indeed we just want to adopt. And because my partner comes from a culture where it's fine to adopt and you're not as pressured to have biological children, it was easier for him to accept it, I think. Well, way much easier than the conflict of mine, up to the point that it's something that I do not enjoy discussing with my family or with people from said culture. So I really wanted to also say that, and this is something which, like, usually I think about a topic throughout the week, and then I sit down and I think, well, what happened this week? Well, what can I absorb and tell in this video? So I wanted to say that a lot of people kind of were talking whether therapy is good, therapy is not. There has been a lot of discussions on like terms and everything. So I really wanted to go back to the basics, and a lot of people around me are starting T, up to the point that today when I was getting my T shot, the nurse was like, I know someone who's starting HRT, like just now. So I guess welcome everyone to the HRT club. Congrats, you made it. um, but yeah, it really made me think about my infertility because I have an operation coming up, and obviously fertility has been on my mind because it's related to that. So congrats if you know what it is. And so basically, when you start T, at least in Portugal and in many other places, you have to really consider whether you want to, in trans guys' case, if you want to freeze your eggs or if you want to go through pregnancy and then start T. But I do know trans guys who, despite being on T, got pregnant or decided to drop T in order to conceive. And please understand that even if I don't want biological children, I do understand that, if you want to carry, please feel free. I have nothing against it, just that my bottom dysphoria will never allow that. And didn't, as you may have noticed. So, and it's really funny actually. I knew this trans guy, and he had, he still has a daughter. And I remember when I was really nervous, I still get really nervous about having children, even if it's adopted. And I remember I was really on the fence, and I was like, oh my god, because everyone's like, oh yeah, you're the gay, trans, etc. Like, you won't be a good parent, and all that bullshit, which, people just like to bombard you with. And she was, like, his daughter was the happiest kid I've ever seen in my life. Like, I've never seen such a joyful kid in my life. Like, she really had, like, really, really loving dads, and she still does, and she's just so accepting. And looking at her made me realize that people are full of shit who think that kids from gay parents, from LGBT parents, won't be accepting, or won't be the best parents. And her dads love her a lot. And in general, I've never seen such a literal ray of sunshine in my life. So, if you want to have birth children, or if you want to go through this process, feel free. Like, I still think it's a conversation which needs to be had. And I am forever grateful that when I started transitioning, I started private in Portugal, because I really wanted to start as soon as possible. And the people who I knew recommended me to go to private, and I had insurance and etc. So, well, I still have insurance, but you know what I mean. So basically, I did go through private, and I had a very, very, very good doctor, which was in charge of my transition. And to this day, I'm forever grateful. And specifically, one of the things that I took away with me was the conversation about fertility that I had with him. And specifically now in these days, well, in general, people are very distrustful of therapy. So I honestly don't think I would have been as okay with my decision as I am now if it wasn't for him. Like, we literally sat down, and he wasn't a psychologist, he was just in charge of my transition. He was a sexologist and a person specialized to prescribe hormones. So we did sit down and we discussed it. And he just went, take your time, like, I will have your prescription if you want. And like, he gave it to me, and he said, you can start, you know, like, once you're ready. If you want to conceive, you can conceive now. If you want to freeze, you can freeze now. Like, you're approved for T, but since it's a topic on your mind, it's better to have children now or freeze eggs now rather than doing it later. But again, you can do it. It's more like it's suggested to do it and then go and see. But obviously there's a lot of decisions. There's life. I know a case of a trans guy who was, I think he was around 7 years in T, and he got pregnant from, I can't remember if it was boyfriend or husband, I'm sorry. And he got pregnant, and they had a child, and all was fine. But the point is, you should really use contraception, you should use condoms, you should get an IUD. Any method. Like, for instance, I have an IUD. And it's better if you choose one which doesn't have hormones. So in my case, it's the copper IUD. So you pretty much just get it, and you're fine. So I obviously highly recommend to protect yourself, not just from STIs, but also from the fact that you can get pregnant if you don't want to. It's still obviously a very touchy subject, and etc. And it's very difficult depending on your country, because just because I have good health providers doesn't mean that you will, or that I will have in the future. Or what if I came across someone who wouldn't be able to help me, or etc., because the world is a very weird place. So it's always better to stay protected. So I really wanted to say that having that discussion with him, being as open as I was with that doctor, it helped me understand that it's okay to adopt and to choose that for later in your life, and it's okay to prioritize yourself. If you can't conceive for some reason, whether it's transition or whether it's you just can't, it's fine. Because when I was growing up, it was very difficult. I had very, very difficult conversations with my relatives, where people would go from snarky remarks to abusing me for the fact that I didn't want to be fertile. I didn't want to conceive. I wasn't fertile for a bit before I went on T. And I legit got told things by my abuser, which was like, you are not fulfilling your role in life by not giving children. And what will you say to your partner that you can't conceive? Like, what will your partner even do with you? And this was just so weird to hear, and not to mention hurtful and very abusive. So I kind of hope that people don't get to go through this traumatic experience that I did, because when people pressure you into doing certain things, it's never good. And I do wish, obviously I'm speaking from my experience, but I do wish it was easier for people to understand that adopting is okay. Not having children as well is absolutely okay. And the more I see like graphs which state that, oh, people are childless now, people conceive less, there's less birth rate. And it's really a philosophical question, like, what is wrong with not continuing your family tree? And it's something which I've been thinking. I've made my decision, obviously, but that I do not want children, but it's still a very difficult time. And people don't really think about that because I was pressured so much into being fertile and finally getting rid of it. It's like, finally, you know? It's like, and because it's gonna be my first surgery, it's like, I'll finally remove that thing. Like, that's it. I'm like tied, thankfully, to testosterone shots like forever. So it's a very liberating thing, even to think about it. But at the same time, it's very difficult, obviously, because I was abused and I was really forced into trying to keep my fertility up until I started my treatment. And then when I started my treatments, I was like, oh, you can't be a parent because you're a gay guy, and utter bullshit. And how will you explain this? And another thing which I wanted to state was, in my case, because I moved away and I have no desire, no reason, no safety to come back. I don't even want to visit at this point because I just feel so unsafe and unwelcome, and I don't even feel comfortable like even going to the embassy and discussing things like name change, which is taking a very, very long while for me right now. So people really don't understand that their reality, when they say such things, is not the reality that you have or I have in this case. And people just don't want to listen. They're like, this is my reality. And they can't understand that my reality is different. Like, and specifically now in the times of COVID, where Portugal is doing fine with the COVID situation. And, well, obviously we have our faults, and obviously COVID is still happening, but the vaccination rate is really high. People are really taking precautions. People are taking it very, very seriously. And when I look at like my birth country, other countries which are similar and or related to me, I just go, why aren't people doing the basic things? And that is their reality. They have to live with the enormous death rate, while I get to live here calmly in regards to COVID and in regards to trans things. And then if I just like peep there, it's absolute batshit there. So I'm not trying to say that some reality is invalid, but you have to consider what's around you. Are you safe? What to do? And etc. And I'm not like preaching like, oh yeah, you should absolutely pack your bags and move. It's not that easy. It's never that easy. And I was also talking to people who were rather depressed this week. And you do feel like you're stuck in a place which is never going to change. And you feel like your situation won't change. And I just really wanted to say that it can change, and you need to not just find the strength in you, but you need to believe in yourself. I think that's the main takeaway. And usually I don't like seeing those posts either by people, but when I see people who really worked hard, who are transparent about how they did it, who are transparent about their life, And not just I was born into a rich family, so I borrowed $1 million and that's it. It's not like that. It's very often not like that. So yeah, so I just want to make sure that you choose your own decision, whether you want fertility or not, whether you want to adopt or not, and just stick with it. It's your decision. And I wish we were more open about such discussions. But unfortunately, we're not. So, thank you very much. Oh yeah, please like and subscribe because just like everyone, I live in capitalism, sadly.